everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new around here, my name is Lacey and I like to talk about simple and sustainable magical living. So today I want to talk about Yule and how you can celebrate it, or winter solstice, whatever you might actually call it. So I want to apologize in advance. My camera battery died when I sat down to try to film this. I've tried to film it all week and I have a very small window while my husband has my kids out and it can actually be quiet, so I'm filming it on my phone. If it's not the best quality visually or the best quality audio, I'm really sorry, but I wanted to get this out. Alright, so Yule, as you may know it, is typically celebrated on the winter solstice. Now it is of Norse origin, so we don't exactly know the exact date that it was celebrated on. It could have been based on the moon, so it could have been a new moon or full moon around this time, but the thought is that it was typically celebrated in December or winter months, and so it's come to be associated with winter solstice and sometimes Christmas. Winter solstice typically occurs on or around December 21st here in the northern hemisphere, and that is the longest night of the year and the shortest day. The word Yule comes from Old Norse and later Old English, and it was considered the time when the harvest was done and the hunting would begin. But celebrating this sort of season or time of year, solstice, winter solstice wise, goes way, way back. Even the Romans celebrated Saturnalia, which began on or around, we guess, December 17th. So there is a common theme around these winter celebrations where you are celebrating the return of light, or they are light festivals. Even when we think of Kwanzaa and Hanukkah, they are light festivals or celebrations. Winter solstice has many different names, and I'm going to leave them in the description box below because there's quite a few and some of them I can't even pronounce. But just to give you an idea, there is Yule, Yuletide, winter solstice, the longest night, the wild hunt, and so on. Even ancient Egyptians celebrated some type of light or return of the light festival around this time. Some accounts say that it was the return of the sun god Ra, and other accounts say that it was the birth of the god Horus, but either way, somewhere throughout history, almost everyone has celebrated some version of Midwinter, Yule, something to that effect. So many of our modern Christmas traditions actually carry some type of old pagan origins. Even it's thought that Santa Claus, which we typically associate with St. Nicholas, has been said to have origins or associations with the Norse god Odin and sometimes Celtic Druid priests. The Yule log was originally a giant log, or the largest tree, that was brought in, and half of it was placed in the hearth and it was lit from the previous year's Yule log, which was carefully stored away. That log would have been burned for as long as it could, and then it would have been saved, pieces of it would have been saved to use for the next year. According to the writings of Pliny the Elder, it was a time when Druid priests would sacrifice a white bull and climb trees to gather mistletoe, which was sacred. Now, I'd like to point out that a lot of the accounts that we have of Celtic tribes and Druid priests are secondhand accounts, typically from Romans who were a little bit biased and didn't really like the Celtic tribes. So we don't really know exactly what happened, how they celebrated, or what they celebrated, but we do have a little bit of an idea, and if you feel that some of those celebrations resonate with you, then I think that's fine. Celtic legends talk about the battle between the Holly King and the Oak King. The Oak King represents the new year and the light, and the Holly King represents the dark, and they battle, one trying to take over the other, different times of year. So you might see that as when the light is reborn and the light is going away. In other traditions, winter solstice honors the return of the light or the birth of the Holy Sun, S-O-N or S-U-N. And we can see that reflected even now to this day in Christmas traditions. Some celebrations include lighting a candle for the laboring mother, and other traditions include lighting 3 candles as representation of mother, maiden, and crone. In Roman mythology, it was the return of the god Saturn, and Saturnalia was the festival, and it was thought that Romans wove wreaths to give as gifts. So that's where we associate the Christmas wreath. We also have the tradition of wassailing, which is an Anglo-Saxon tradition, and it has different meanings throughout time. The oldest part of it was where you would sing to the crops and pour cider or some type of beverage, now known as wassail, into the crops for fertility. Later, people would go singing door to door, and then that turned into Victorian era that eventually became Christmas caroling. Now, the Christmas traditions that we have today were basically made by the Victorians. A lot of those things had carried over into Middle Ages and Tudor times and then to Victorian times, but what we really think of as a lot of our Christmas traditions were really just put on the map by Victorians. So our Christmas trees in 1840 were popularized in England by Prince Albert, who brought the tradition over from Germany, and I'm pretty sure that it probably stemmed from the tradition of the Yule log. Although it's also said that many other cultures brought in some type of evergreen or always green plant during that time of year, and that symbolized the life in the middle of winter. In 1843, Henry Cole created the first Christmas card. The Christmas feast definitely has its roots in the Middle Ages, so it was typically the only time that you actually celebrated Christmas was Christmas Day and after. Now we tend to have the tradition of starting November or so and getting ready and leading up to the day, and then Christmas is over and there it goes. But it was tradition to prepare leading up to Christmas Day. Typically there was different types of fasting going on and so on in medieval times, and so you would have a huge feast on Christmas Day and the days after. But it is the Victorians that really made the modern idea of the Christmas feast sort of take shape. All right, so how do we celebrate Yule, particularly if you're interested in doing it in a witchcraft or perhaps pagan perspective? Well, a lot of the things that you probably already do or associate with Christmas, you can continue to do or associate with this time of year. You can decorate with the sacred plants of winter solstice or midwinter, which would include evergreens, holly, ivy, and so on. You can harvest a solstice tree or put up or decorate some sort of tree. I like the tradition of decorating a tree outside. We have one here that was gifted to us, so we use this artificial one while we have it. The last few years, we actually sort of made our tree or had a living potted tree that we repotted. On the night of the solstice, you can turn off all of the lights and welcome in the darkness, as well as lighting candles. You can light a candle for the laboring mother if that's part of your tradition or something that you want to start. You could also burn a Yule log. I like to take a log and decorate it and then put well wishes and messages in and then burn it. Although we don't have a wood burning fireplace now, we have a gas fireplace, so I have a Yule log that is a log with candles that we put inside, and it has sort of the same meaning. You can also meditate during the setting of the sun or the sunrise. You can feed the animals. Now I would definitely check in with your local societies, what you should and should not be doing as far as feeding the wildlife, but stringing popcorn or cranberries or creating bird feeders, things like that are really nice to do. And like I said, you can go out and decorate a tree somewhere in the forest if you have access to one, or somewhere in your yard if you have access to one, and it's a really lovely thing to do to feed the animals that might be kind of hungry in the middle of winter. You can tell stories or legends from different parts of the world. So if we think about a long time ago, there was not as much entertainment as there certainly is now, and so storytelling and myths were such a big aspect of people's lives, particularly in the winter time when it was dark and you spent a lot of time indoors. You can create a circle of candles. You can mark your cardinal directions, north, east, south, and west, and you can put a wish or journal about what each direction could bring to you. So particularly if you think of maybe Wiccan traditions, the directions have correspondences to themes, emotions, feelings, energies, and you might want to call upon those particular energies. That could be part of your solstice ritual. You can host a spiral walk. This is part of our regular winter solstice ritual every year, and what we do is we create a spiral somewhere, either outside or in the living room if we have to, and there is a single light lit candle in the middle. Now, if you could have a large fire, that would be great, but we've always had sort of just a few candles in the middle of the spiral. And you take an unlit candle, you walk towards the center, you light your candle, and then you walk outward with the light. All right, everyone, so I hope that you found those ideas really interesting and helpful. Don't forget that I have a Naturally Modern Witch membership, and every single month you get a digital spell book that comes with tons and tons of ideas, recipes, crafts, remedies, and ways to celebrate the season and the lunar cycle. So if you want to check that out, I will leave it in the description below. It is actually only going to be open for the month of December, and then it's going to close until probably springtime. So if you've ever wanted to do it, now's the time, or you'll have to wait until probably March or April. But go ahead and subscribe if you like these type of videos. Give them a thumbs up, because it lets me know what to create more of. And I hope everyone has a great holiday season.